Welcome to the Grow in Sahuarita podcast, where we talk about all things to growing your business in Sahuarita. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Grow in Sahuarita podcast. This is your host, Alex Magallanes, economic development specialist and business coach for the Grow in Sahuarita program. I am happy to be here. And for those of you who are listening, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this podcast. And so I want to give you a little bit about myself for those of you who are listening for the first time. And if I already met you, I've had the privilege of meeting you. Welcome again. So again, my name is Alex. I've been with the town of Sahuarita, specifically with the economic development department for a little bit over a year and a half. And it's definitely my privilege to be here with you and to be serving you and serving this organization. It's really a pleasure just bringing my skills and my career, my experience, not only as a small business owner currently. My wife and I, we own a couple of businesses, but also I've been in the entrepreneurial development for quite a few years already. Actually, I started back in 2016, and I first started getting my feet wet into the entrepreneurial development when I first started as a business lender. So I used to work for this organization. I used to do business lending, and I would often find myself just giving a lot of assistance, if you will, sometimes even a little bit of training, advice, if you will, to small business owners. And so I went to school for marketing analytics. And so I would find myself just giving a lot of marketing tips, explaining processes, giving a little bit of training, how to use social media, perhaps how to read your analytics. And so I would find myself doing that quite often. And I started finding a passion truly into entrepreneurial development. And that's what led me to where I am right now. I have a passion for helping small business owners. And like I said, I am a small business owner myself, along with my wife. And so what I bring to the table as a business coach to the program is not only book theory, if you will, but it's actually experience. We've owned several businesses, my wife and I. We actually used to own a bridal boutique that is still in existence in Tucson, and we sold that boutique in January 2024. And so we definitely consider that our success, but that's 13 years prior to that of ups and downs. Dealing with all kinds of things, the lease, right? Something breaking down in the storefront, or hiring employees, creating processes and operations processes, if you will. Dealing with inventory, and obviously dealing with clients and customers. And so what I bring to the table is I'm proud to say that it's definitely of value, because when we sit down, or when I sit down with a local business owner that is getting our coaching assistance, I'm not only speaking from things that I've read or I've learned along the years, but also from experience. And so I say all that because given that I have some lending background as well, one of the things that I learned along the years is loan readiness for small business owners, and it's definitely not rocket science, but it's not also super easy. And so if you are a small business owner and you've been in operations for a while, you probably already know by now, right? If you're listening, that traditional banking, you need to have at least 2 years, some of them sometimes 3 years of business operations, as well as business tax returns, in order for you to be considered for a small business loan. But what happens to the rest of us, right, who've been in business for less than 3 years? What happens to the entrepreneur who is getting started from home or their garage here in Sahuarita, and they find themselves needing access to capital? Well, in the United States, we have this I want to say, for the lack of a better word, this program called CDFIs, which is Community Development Financial Institutions. And these CDFIs, or these organizations, typically they are nonprofit organizations, and they get a certification through the U.S. Treasury. And so once they get certified, they're able to serve the community in various forms. Some CDFIs focus in mortgages and helping first-time home buyers gain access to mortgage loans so they can get their first home. Some other CDFIs focus more on the entrepreneurial development / business lending, and that's where I found myself doing a lot of back in 2016 through 2019. So I worked with different CDFIs doing small business lending and also doing a little bit of entrepreneurial development, such as business coaching. And if you don't know what really economic development is all about, well, let me tell you, there's a lot of us who still are learning a lot about economic development. But economic development is very broad, but there are some focuses within economic development, and one of them is entrepreneurial development. Another one is business attraction. Another focus is workforce development, so on and so forth. And so one of the things that I'm very proud of here in Sahuarita is that we have an in-house program that is it's serving our constituents at no cost to them, where we can offer this business coaching. And so so today I want to talk to you. I'm just connecting the dots, and I want to talk to you about access to capital and how you can get ready to access capital. And so the reason I mentioned CDFIs is because these kind of groups or organizations, they actually serve more or less like a bridge lender. So they stand between the entrepreneur, the small business owner, and traditional banking institutions. Now, don't get me wrong, I love traditional banking institutions, right? Many of them offer, we get our first checking, right? Coming out of high school, if you will, and you get your first checking account or a savings account, probably with the Wells Fargos, the Chase, right? The Bank of America of our area. And truly, they serve a great purpose. But when it comes to business lending, it's a little bit more difficult because these institutions, such as the big banks, if you will, they are regulated. There's so many regulations by the federal government. They're highly regulated, and so they also have to mitigate the risk of who they're lending and how they go about it. And so their underwriting has to be a little more stringent, has to be a little bit more conservative. So it's a little bit harder for them to be able to lend to a startup or someone who's starting just out of their garage with a micro enterprise or what we call a micro entrepreneur. And so when here in the States, when we realized that we had that problematic, that's when CDFIs were born. And the point of CDFIs is to help bridge that gap between the local small entrepreneur and the banking institution. And so they serve to bridge that gap. And that's why I call them bridge lenders. And some of these organizations, such as CDFIs or CDEs, which is community development enterprises, they offer small business lending. They have a little bit more flexible, lenient underwriting guidelines in order to bridge that gap. They also focus on micro lending, so they can do loans that are $50,000 or less. I remember working for this organization in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that we used to do loans of like $300, $500, and that's like very, very micro lending. And so sometimes $500 is helpful for the food truck, right? Entrepreneur, or $1,000 is helpful for the nail salon to get out of some kind of problem. And so, and that's what these CDFIs do. They help, those entrepreneurs looking for the very, very small amounts all the way to those who are looking for a little bit higher. I work for another CDFI in which they do up to $1 million, and they still consider that a small business loan. And so what happens, right? So you establish your business, you start growing, you start gaining some traction, you realize that if you get access to capital, you can make this sustainable. Well, there's a process in how to ready yourself before you even submit an application. And so maybe some of you have heard of the 5 C's of credit. And so I use this because a lot of lenders, CDFIs, and including banks are going to look into the 5 C's of credit. And perhaps you already heard about them, or maybe this is the first time that you're hearing about this. So if you have pen and paper, right, if you're like myself, right, you like to take notes, I am definitely invited to take notes. So let's look at the first 5 C's. The first C of the credit. And the first C is going to be character. And so any lending institution will measure your character. Now, in the United States, we have a system that it's called the FICO score, right? Or what we others know as your credit score. And so that's a system that was created to be able to measure the character, the person's character in their lending history, or more, better said, in their borrowing history, right? And so if you get a credit card, I remember, graduating from college and then stepping into a banking institution. Almost right away after graduation, I think a couple days later, I opened my first checking account. Yes, I was in college already and I didn't have a checking account. But back in the day, I didn't know anything about finances. So I stepped into a banking institution. I opened a checking account and they offered me a credit card. And so I walked out of of this bank with a checking account and a credit card and not knowing how to use a credit card. So I maxed out that credit card, and obviously, being a young fella, right? I never paid attention that they were sending me bank statements, right? Billing statements to my address, and so I would miss the payment, right? And so that started building and obviously damaging my credit. And so, because that's how banks, right, are going to measure your character if you have the character to repay your debt. And that's all built into your credit score. And so, so what the first C is definitely characters. So it depends on the lender, but most likely, if you submit an application, they're going to do they're going to pull your credit, and they may do a soft pull credit, which it doesn't hurt your credit, but they're able to still see your credit score and see your credit history. And really, what they're looking into, okay, just FYI, is they're looking into your repayment history and the type of lines of credits that you've had in the past. Have you had a credit card and did you repay it well? Have you had a personal loan? Did you repay it well? Have you had a vehicle loan? Did you repay it well? And so they want to know the variety of credit that you have enjoyed or that you have partaken of, and then your repayment level. And that's how your credit score is built. And that's how they measure your character. So the first C is character. The second C is going to be capacity. So besides debt, they want to know, what is your debt to income ratio? Do you have the income to sustain the debt that you are applying for? And so one of the things that I recommend when it comes to capacity is take into account when applying for a small business loan, all the income that you have in the household, because trust me, yes, it's a business loan, but they will look into your personal matters in order to measure if Alex, right, in this case, can repay this business loan. And so they will look into, okay, who else is in your household? Is it a significant other? Does this person bring income? Yes. Okay, they're going to want to take that into consideration. Again, it's all about mitigating risk, right? That's what the CDFIs are mitigating. Remember, they are bridge lenders and they're trying to reduce the risk and help you be at some point bankable so that you can access traditional banking lending. The third C is capital. And so this is very helpful, and it may be a little bit confusing because, I get this a lot where people are like, well, why do I need to have capital if I'm asking for capital? But I'm going to tell you one thing as a former business lender, the best time to request a loan is when you actually don't need it. Yeah, you heard that right. The best time to ask for a business loan is when your cash flow is beautiful, when you're carrying cash, month to month, and you have a residue at the end of the day. And that's after paying yourself, after paying all of your expenses, and you still have cash in your account. And so how do you measure that? Well, a cash flow statement. which is very different from the profit and loss statement. And we can talk about that later. But banks or lenders or CDFIs will want to see if you can bring in capital to the project. So let's say your project is, I don't know, I am in the, let's say, right, for an example, I'm in the irrigation business, right? And I need to buy a new piece of equipment, maybe a new truck. Well, that lender will need to know, okay, Mr. Alex, you're looking for $15,000. Are you bringing a down payment to this project? And so that's how they're going to measure if you have capital and if you can inject capital into the project. So that's the third C, capital. The fourth C is collateral. So what is the guarantee? What can you use as a security to repay the loan should you default on the loan? And trust me, most lenders, actually, this should have been the second C, right? The first C is character. Really, the second C should have been collateral because most lenders will look into collateral. Now, granted, there are some programs out there that are currently doing unsecured loans, and it's all based on character, all based on your credit score. And those are awesome programs. As a matter of fact, we're going to invite some of them to this podcast to speak about their products that they're offering out to the business community. But for now, definitely, I want you to learn about collateral. What goods does your business or personally speaking, can you offer to guarantee the loan? Maybe you have a free and clear title for that vehicle that you already finished paying off. Guess what? Some CDFIs, some lenders are going to want to look into that. Maybe you're actually looking to access lending to buy a new piece of equipment for your bakery. Maybe it's a new oven, whatever it is. I'm just giving examples. Whatever that piece of equipment is, that may be used actually for collateral. And so they may place a lien against that piece of equipment so that they can repay themselves in case you default the loan. All right, so that was the fourth C of credit, which is collateral. And then the fifth C is conditions. Are the conditions right for your ask? Is this relevant? Let me give you an example, okay? I like to give examples so I can paint the picture and we can grasp the idea. I was a lender during the pandemic. I was still doing business loans, and I received a phone call from this lady who had been offered an event space, okay, during the pandemic. And so she's calling me. She's saying, Alex, I need access to capital. I want to buy this event space, and this is right during the pandemic. As you can guess, probably you're giggling a little bit. If you're listening, of course we said no to that application, right? Because why? The conditions were not right to open an event space, right? Everything was shutting down, right? You were having to keep 6 feet of distance between people. And so I giggle a little bit, and I'm not trying to make fun of. I'm just giving you an example of, are the conditions right? And so when you come to your application, right, and you submit an application, what are the conditions of your industry? What are the existing conditions of your industry? If you are in the food and beverage industry, what are the conditions, right? Well, right now prices are going up, and one of the items in the food truck I sell is breakfast sandwiches. Well, eggs is expensive, right? And so they want to know what are you gonna do? The conditions right now is eggs are overpriced, right? And so a lender most likely is going to ask a question, hey, what are you going to do about it, Mr. Client, right? If this continues, if egg prices continues going up, right? And those are the conditions. What are you going to do? Are you going to shift? Are you going to pivot your menu? And so I'm just giving examples of, are the conditions ripe for your request? The other piece to keep in mind when it comes to conditions is, can you break down your project into different phases? What does that mean? Maybe you want to do a build out for your existing storefront. And that's why you request an access to capital. And so sometimes you can break that down in that project instead of doing, an additional 300 square feet that you're adding, right, to your storefront. Maybe you can break it down in 200 square feet first and then 100 feet. And I'm just giving examples of how sometimes lenders get creative to say, you know what, Mr. Client, we can't lend you 50,000 right now, but we can definitely do 30,000 because, the conditions, your character or credit score capacity and the capital that you're bringing in. And so just be open-minded, definitely stay flexible as you establish those relationships with a CDFI or a small business lender. And then just know that there's ways that you can get creative in forming a lending package. And so if this was helpful, I just want to extend the invitation for those of you who are listening. These are the kind of things that we teach in our one-on-one business coaching here at Growing Sahuarita, and this is all at no cost to you. And so if you are thinking about, you know what, Alex, I need to access capital, I would like to get ready, give me a call. My cell phone number is 520-659-2711. Again, 520-659-2711. Or you can definitely email us to grow@sahuaritaaz.gov. Again, grow@sahuaritaaz.gov. And I really hope that you find this helpful. We'll see you guys on the next episode.